Everyone, we are here with Colin Stetson. He is the man behind the score for a number of films, including The Menu, that is coming out very, very soon with Ray Fiennes and Anna Taylor-Joy. Uh, Colin, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm well. I'm caffeinated and good to go. So let's talk about The Menu. Can you tell us a bit about the film?
Um, well, I think as I was telling the last person I talked about this with, I prefer to say as little about this one. I kind of that's my MO for everything. I think that trailers should be done away with, although I see their utility. And for this one, I like to talk about it as little as possible because my experience with it was that I was approached by the filmmakers, was interested in working with me potentially, and they said, have a new film, here's the script. And that's all I knew about it. And reading the script and just having no expectation whatsoever was an absolute like delight. It's an incredible read. And it does so in the ways it's very surprising, in all the ways that it is, and it's very unconventional. It's very novel in the ways that's in what it's able to get done, and the way that it's able to get done. I've never read that particular. I've not seen that story before, and so when I read that, I was super thrilled because it's really rare that you read something that you haven't seen, especially nowadays. You rarely read something that you have not seen a million times before. So yeah, all that to not answer your question. What to say about it? It's super fun. It's
Well,
it's
essentially,
very
just to set it up, essentially it's, a movie about food, it's a movie about a very interesting dining experience with an eccentric
exactly.
chef.
That was much better than my answer.
Well, just a crazy chef who's very dedicated to his craft and the people who are there. It almost feels a little bit stagey too, which I kind of enjoyed. Um,
Very much so. It
you
does. It feels like a theater adaptation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, and so okay, so how did you mentioned how you became a part of the project, that you were handed the script. Was that before or after they had begun shooting?
It was after they
Okay,
were starting the edit.
okay. So you were
Mhm.
starting the edit, and can you talk to me about the creative process with director Mark Malad? And you read the script. Is that the point that you started coming up with themes and melodies, or did you wait to
Mm.
see a cut?
Yeah, very much so. I tend to that's all part of it for me. If I'm reading a script and I already hear everything to the degree, especially the degree that I did while reading the menu, then I know it's something that I'm really very excited about and want to make sure that I get to do. And this one, it it really it practically wrote itself. It really just it's all there in such clear and defined terms. I thought, and so from that first reading, what normally happens with me in scripts and films is that I'll read a script, and then while it's fresh in my head, I'll for the next few days I'll wake up, and first thing I'll spend an hour or something, just kind of improvising and feeling out and developing little ideas. Piano a lot of the times, although other instruments as well, saxophones, etc. And so on this one was no different. For that first week after reading the script, I kind of fleshed out these different ideas that had been hot in my brain while reading, and so much of that ended up being at least the skeleton and the basis for what is the final music.
Uh-huh. And let's talk about this soundscape that you ended up choosing.
Hmm.
You have, it's heavy on strings. Uh,
Yeah.
and why did you go with that?
Well, it's heavy on strings, deceivingly so. There's actually quite a lot of everything else, but I think the strings are front loaded. It does come out the gate kind of raring to go in string world, and why did I go? So, but the the whole, like the structure of it, the scaffolding of it, the bones are all of this very um, kind of polyrhythmic, mathy, uh, pizzicato sort of driving rhythmic thing. And so that starts with the orchestral strings and then is kind of handed off or enhanced, modified by the inclusion of the plucked piano strings later on and some and various percussion and other less conventional instruments. And um, so that to me really is the through line from beginning to end. And then there are various other things going on, but I think the string presence kind of, although it's not an entire like organic decrescendo in terms of its overall presence from beginning to end, it is somewhat like that because there are other elements that at certain moments start to take over in huge ways and then increasingly so throughout the course of it. Although there, I suppose arguably there always is a string presence, but the beginning I wanted to feel very um to have a levity to it, to feel luxurious and lavish and exciting and also really kind of in the dark as to anything nefarious to come, so that the whole beginning of the film, the way that it intros is this kind of um um yeah, it's very string forward, very bubbly, very
Yeah, because the first track, the All Aboard track, is very nautical, very, like let's go explore.
it's
Kind of,
delightful. It
yeah,
is.
everything's kind of
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned the rhythmic pace of the score. How does that pair with the action? Why did you choose rhythm to pair with this particular script?
It's a really fast read. It's a very fast and tight script. It really is very lean. It doesn't do anything it doesn't need to do. Every move, even if you don't already know that it's what it's setting up, is all everything is all there for a very particular reason, essentially. And so the rhythmic aspect of it it struck me as being pretty obvious, or really just where my mind was at when I was reading it in a number of ways. One, just the pacing of it. It's something that it gets to set up this kind of jovial, again, light and refreshing sort of start to everything, but at the same time that um, that can that all of those same elements, those same rhythms, when uh, um, um, effect, when played by different instrumentation, I'm going to try to speak without spoilers, but at certain point when
At
the
certain
musical
moments,
cat is let out of the bag,
yeah,
there the sonic character of that whole thing can changes up, and then all of those rhythms now can become the drivers for the anxiety, for the tension build, and all that same thing. And then I saw rhythm as being not only there to be this ever chugging train getting us from point A to point B throughout it in terms of tension building and all of that, but also the way these polyrhythms work together over the top of one another is they can function like a train track being switched at any given moment. And so I found it really quite useful in my head to think of that as a way to not only um, subvert kind of direction in the horror aspect of things, but also in the comedy. Um, the fact that underlying all of this, it is a very funny film, and so
dark
that
and funny.
yeah, and so that was so it seemed to be a catch-all for me, something that could really operate on this level that and kind of and accomplish everything that I needed to do. And so it really is that scaffolding dressed up in a lot of different ways.
Right. It pulls to me it gave a very propulsory nature to, you're things seem like they're kind of just being really smooth, but you're kind of being pulled along to something, even though you may not be ready for it quite yet. So it was like very
Mm,
cool. Very cool.
great.
Let's see, let's talk about the theme for Hawthorne, the actual
Hmm.
thing, because like I said, you start off with the, bright sounding stuff, and then you get to Hawthorne, and that's when you sound. It seems like you opened things up tonally, melodically, um, and you went for higher notes, lower notes, things like that. Was that intentional?
Are we speaking about when they're on the island walking around, or when they?
Just when they, yeah, just when they get to the island,
Oh,
and
yeah. Well, it's expansive. It's also very questioning. There's a lot of space and a lot of static. These rhythmic pizzicato strings again rolling, and with clarinet pads, and it's I find that it's playing to the airy the ness of the shots, the nature of it all. There's a definite nod, like a sincere nod to that beauty and the whole wonder of it, and really milking that. But then also it again is leaving it's constantly questioning, it's constantly leaving itself open for what's the catch. So that I wanted for us to still be very much in a light place, but one that was starting to wonder.
I love it. I just love it. So you have actually, were there any scenes or tracks in particular that you really leaned into and had a lot of fun with, or is there a particular track that's your favorite?
All of them. I, I had so much fun with this one. Is there a particular one that I leaned into? Um, One of the ones that I think, well, I know I spent the most time with and really have had explored and seen from every angle would probably be the climactic track, the Purifying Flame.
Yeah.
And that is just a beast. I mean, it's a huge, it's a huge track in terms of the instrumentation, in terms of the breadth of it musically. It really just it ties up all the themes, all the loose ends. Everything kind of comes together and comes together in this way where it is. And I mean, there's no real way to talk about all this stuff without if without some amount of spoilers. So apologies. But there is a kind of stately, triumphal, ecstaticness to it.
Like a euphoria. There's
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
there's a yeah, like a climactic euphoria
Mhm.
to the vision that's coming together.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And what's so funny to me? Well, what I find interesting about your work, and you did this in Hereditary with Reborn, um, you you have this way of creating a foreboding melody that has this dark optimism and hope. So you is that what you're aiming for?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, like,
But
how do you even construct that?
well, just do it until it feels right. Uh, uh,
I mean, that goes with everything, I suppose. But but yeah, it's
yeah.
just it's something that you are very good at.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, it's amazing. So I let's talk about quickly your influences. Obviously, I'm picking up Philip Glass, all over the place. But are there any other influences or any other composers that really get you fired up creatively?
Uh, Certainly. Um, for this one, you mean for this specifically, or just in general? The idea of influences, like as an intellectual um, exercise, I tend to look at it more on a nuts and bolts sort of consumption level,
Okay,
like a you are what you eat kind of thing. So
sure.
for me, if I was to analyze my life and my habits around and before having written this music, I would point to certain things that may be a little bit less obvious and some things that may be more obvious. I mean, I listen to a lot of Baroque music, especially in the morning. So there's an enormous amount of Bach. Like I've been listening to a lot of Corelli this
Hmm.
past year. So there's things like that, which obviously, I leaned into in certain places on this one. And then there are other things like I'm a lifelong metalhead and I listen to a lot of Meshuggah, and much of my rhythm like world, like the basis for so much of what and how it is that I think about rhythm, and utilizing it, I know stems from things like that. And those guys who are really some of the, I mean, it's some of the best in the world ever. It's at really harnessing everything that that rhythm and uh, the fact of math in music can do. Um, so so there's two, but I'm kind of like a voracious eater of all things music, and so I don't tend to have any sort of genre boundaries. Just it ranges all over, and so this question can always I can ramble on and on, but
It's
there's
it's
there's a couple
totally
fun
fine.
ones.
I love to point out that creators like you, musicians like you, it's not just that you listen to classical, it's that you have all kinds of influencers, from all over the place, and music is an inspiration. So you've composed for a lot of different things. You've composed for video games, documentaries, features, shorts. Do you have a favorite, or do they all have their own charms?
Well, they certainly have their own charms. I think it's because of, well, time time is always relevant. I think maybe because of time and because of the format, there's something like I I I do I do and have and always will work on a particular, like, just single one-off track, like songs. Um, I always do gravitate towards the album format in when I'm making in the vinyl format, when I'm making a solo record, for example. And I do think I do have an affinity, specifically for film, for that format, for that length, just the tidiness of it, the opportunity in storytelling, but also conciseness. There of course there are tons of opportunities in longer form storytelling like TV, but rarely is there the kind of time that would, it doesn't end up being exactly analogous to like a 10-hour film, for example,
Mm,
as it could be. Conceptually, theoretically, it could be that, but it doesn't necessarily end up being able to be exactly that, I think, in reality, practically speaking. So I think that maybe film would be, but it also is the thing that I've done the most. And but then to your earlier point, there is something very specific about all of them I have found very fun, and I've had a lot of fun working with in the past. Video games specifically are unlike any of the other things because you're working with um, a, a multiplicity of possibility throughout every turn,
mm,
and so you're writing. So it takes different. It's a different kind of puzzle, and so it's a different kind of problem solving. And I do enjoy it a lot because it's very unique in the world of all of them. And I think that there's something there that. Harnessed right and then extrapolated to other forms is really something that's exciting in music making right now.
mm. Yeah, it's I could go on for forever about the different formats and the different
Yeah.
ways, especially creating the different worlds for video games and the ambient tones. And so what is next for you? What do you have coming next?
Let's see. Well, I'm about to work on several other new film and TV projects, which I can't discuss and name, but those things are on the slate. There's the release of Uzumaki finally, which I think is going to happen next spring on Adult Swim, and very excited about that happening. And I have a record which is more of a drone metal record than anything, certainly than anything else that I've done in the past, called Chimera, and that's out on November 11th. And the Menu, of course. And I'm working on two new solo records, which will be released in the coming. I imagine both of them will be seeing the light of day next year. So
Excellent.
busy, busy.
Excellent. Keep us posted on that stuff. We'd love to
I,
talk about it. And
anytime.
easily the menu, I think this is my favorite score of yours since Hereditary.
Oh, lovely.
So very well done. Everyone, well, first of all, Colin, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me about the score for the menu. And please come back and talk to us when you have another project.
I can't wait. Thanks so much, Norman.
All right. Thanks, Colin.
Okay, bye.
Bye.